Satnam, everyone. This is Kia. So nice to connect with you on this Sunday. I realize I had not put out a post about what time, so I'm guessing whoever just happens upon this, you'll happen upon it at the right moment for you. So this chat is all about covering another 7 facets of awareness. So we can start to dig a little bit deeper into all of the ways that we can focus as human beings, all of the ways that we can bring ourselves out of distraction and into a place of awareness. In a sense, it's not even coming into the present moment, because the moment you're in the moment, that becomes the past and it's a new moment. Think of it more as it's just an opening of all the different facets of our awareness, so that when we walk into a situation, we are experiencing that situation not from a myopic place, but from an all-encompassing, holistic place. So this 40 Days to Greater Awareness course is an opportunity, if you like, to polish all of these different facets of your awareness so that we can be engaged in each moment in a more holistic way. And that way, we're starting to unhook from the past and from all the unconscious drivers, and we're starting to create a very rich place of presence. And from that place of presence, we start to make decisions that are evolving out of a newness, a different place. And life starts to take on a very different effect and juiciness from there. Hi, John Comerford, just see you joined, yay. So, to begin with today, we're going to look at the concept of pleasure and pain. You know, it's well known, of course, that we will chase after pleasure and we'll avoid pain. And there's the old saying that whatever does bring pleasure initially, eventually can bring pain. Just like this body that we are inhabiting right now, which is, hopefully for you guys a very joyous place to be, this too shall end. Our latest binge on whatever it may be, food, television show, love affair, everything has its birth, its organization period, and its dissolving period, which is why in the yoga tradition, Om is such an important sound, because it's this. It represents the awakening phase, the sustaining phase, and the dissolving phase, and it's that constant reminder that we're in a cycle here. The moment we grasp, we start to stagnate the energy. So learning how to be in a place of being in the flow. So those of us who are avoiding certain pains, we start to put a lot of energy into that avoiding. And for those of us who are attaching to certain pleasures, we put a lot of energy into that attachment. The yoga tradition invites us all to see if we can approach from this place of neutrality. It doesn't mean that there can't be great enjoyment, but just a neutrality, so that we're not in a place of aversion. There's a great story, you guys may know it. the story of the farmer. It comes from the Buddhist tradition. The farmer who has quite an old horse, and so he decides that because his horse is quite old, that he's just going to let it go and let it kind of run off up into the hills, because it's done its service and it's looking a little haggard. And so he lets it go, and the neighbors all come round and they say, oh, we're so sorry, that was your only horse, how are you going to plow your fields now? And his response to that is who knows, we shall see. who knows, we shall see. So, you know, some days later, the horse, all sprightly now, it's been in the mountains, it's had some good grass, some good water, comes back and it brings with it other horses that are following it. And so the neighbors come around and they say, oh, such good fortune, incredible, how lucky you are. And the farmer just goes, we shall see. His young son decides that he'll start to break the horses in, these new horses, and he falls off and breaks his leg. The neighbors come around, I'm giving you the cliff notes here, and they say, oh my God, what misfortune, we're so sorry. And the farmer's basically like, we shall see. And the story goes on like that. And it's basically that he wasn't getting overly overwhelmed with the good, with the bad. He was just in the middle place. Let's just take it as it comes. We shall see. And so the yoga tradition is inviting us to approach life from that perspective. So pleasure and pain. So many things that we can dig into there. For me, the things that cause pain, and really perhaps we should say suffering here, because the things that create suffering are usually the things that we need to let go of and look at. If it's creating suffering, why is it creating suffering? What is our attachment there? Or what is our aversion? And how can we let that go so we're not exhausting ourselves in this process of aversion? The second facet of awareness is contentment that we're looking at today. This is a word called santosha in the yoga tradition, and contentment, it really goes along with the place that the farmer is in. It's an acceptance of what is. So many of us can be living for what will be, and we're passing time now because something better is going to come in the future. And the yogis will say that whatever comes in the future is based on the right now. So if we're passing time right now, we're sowing those seeds of passing time, versus finding the richness and the delightfulness of this moment in time. Even if we may be in a queue in DMV and it smells badly in there and there's noise all around you, it's like, okay, can I find my equanimity and my gratitude in this moment of time, knowing that me holding that space, no matter the external circumstances, is going to allow me to cultivate even more of that in the moments to come. So contentment is a big one in the yoga tradition, and it's a big thing. It's a big concept. It's a big space to hold for us. So that's part of it. The next one we went into this week in terms of awareness is the useful, not useful. I really love this because it's something that I use every single day of my life, because the one thing I've learned in my years of meditation is we can't prevent the thoughts from coming. It's just it's the mind does what the mind does. But we can become very skillful at which thoughts we choose to pay attention to. And when we catch ourselves in a negative spin, if we can just observe that and with the most neutrality possible, just look at it and go, is this a useful thought? Is this a not useful thought? So we're not getting into good, bad, right, wrong. It's just, wow, that's not useful right now. Okay, that negative thought about myself, not useful. That judgment about somebody else, not useful. And just move on. It's not that we're trying to wash, what do they call it? Whitewash life? There's a word, I think I'm messing that, but you guys know what I mean. It's just that we are choosing wisely where we're placing our attention. If what we really have in this very moment of time is our attention, where are we going to place that? Are we going to place it in some negativity that will create and breed more of that? Or are we going to cultivate the ability to catch ourselves in the not useful place? and pull ourselves into a useful place. And if we can't do it for ourselves, can we be in that practice of doing it so that we can be of more service to others? I just was reading this very interesting article today about people. The comment was how narcissistic meditators are, and the response to that by this wonderful meditator was, well, you don't say that a doctor is narcissistic for going through whatever it is, 6 years of training before they can truly serve as a doctor. So when you're a meditator at the beginning, it might seem very self-serving, all of this self-reflection. But ultimately, it's so that we can understand the nature of who we are. We can understand the nature of our mind. We can understand the nature of our cravings and our desires, so that we're not ruled by any of that, so that we can start to engage in a much more conscious and aware way, and use the totality of this vehicle. That's why I love yoga so much, because it's an entire, what do you call it? They offer an entire roadmap for every different aspect of the human being, on the physical, on the energetic, on the mental, on the awareness, on the bliss. It's just, there's an entire roadmap to what it means to be living in this meat suit, as Guru Singh would say. There's an entire roadmap for how the mind operates, and therefore how to start to use the mind so that the mind is not using you. And so this is where really so many of these facets of awareness is just looking at how we're training the focus of our mind. And when we get really skilled at that, just like Guru Nanak said, if you master your mind, you master the world, or you master your relationship to the world. And so that's what we're looking at doing here, becoming masterful in where we place our attention, and then we start to become very skillful in everything that we do. And that's the definition of yoga that's given in the Bhagavad Gita. It's yoga is skill in action. Let's become that skillful in all that we're doing. The last, or the next few that we looked at is one-pointedness. One-pointedness, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's the ability to create some strength in our attention. And something that Rod Stryker said when I was speaking to him a little while ago was, he said, people are becoming very feeble-minded. Think about that for a moment. We're becoming very feeble-minded as a culture. And look at the reasons why we're becoming feeble-minded. So many of us are distracted a lot of the time. We may be having a conversation, but we're checking our phone. We may be reading an article, but we're clicking on all the links in the article, which is fracturing the way that the mind makes sense of everything. We're moving around a lot. We're busy. There's so much information coming at us at any given moment that ability for the mind to be one-pointed, for our attention to stay focused for long periods of time, is being lessened by all of the ways that we are distracted. And that's creating a feebleness in our mind. To me, that feebleness is what makes us vulnerable to depression, to negative thinking, to addictive thinking. We become vulnerable because we lose the strength of mind to be aware enough to see where we're getting stuck, to be aware enough to notice something that's useful versus non-useful, and to be able to make the choices that will support and sustain a holistic experience of life. Again, where I began, we want to move from that myopic view to a much more holistic experience. And so the one-pointedness, every moment that we are training our attention to stay in the experience of the now, we are becoming stronger mentally in a good way. And so that's what we're in the business of here. We're in the business of continuously, consciously choosing to focus the mind, to let go of distraction. If at all possible, be in that practice. For example, if you've sat down to read something, really read for a while. Allow your mind to start to make all of the connections that it does, the intuitive connections, as you're reading something, versus constantly seeking the other opinions of other people's that we do when we're clicking on links while we're reading something, for example. If you're washing the dishes, enjoy the feeling of the water on your hands. Enjoy every little part of what you're doing, and so that you can really focus. If you're having a conversation with somebody, allow yourself to really hear what they're saying versus just sort of spacing out and giving the appropriate cues when you think that you need them. And I feel like I was guilty of that for so long. It still slips in. Someone's talking. If I'm tired, I'm just sort of spacing out. I'm nodding, I'm saying yes, but I'm not really there. So these are all ways we want to be training the mind. The two great yogic terms here are abhyasa and vairagya. Abhyasa is the persistent effort towards this focus, and the vairagya is the letting go of the distraction and the letting go of the fruits, of doing something for the fruits, but actually just being in the awareness of the moment of what we're doing. Then we went on to, or another facet of awareness that we explored this week was tapas. Tapas is a yogic term for discipline. And the way I use this in terms of polishing these facets of awareness is, tapas is sometimes translated in the yoga tradition as austerity. It's our ability to recognize our resistance to doing what we know is right. So think about that for a moment. When there's this inner voice of your conscience, Pandit Rajmani Tiganath talks about the soul experience as the inner voice of your conscience. I really love that. So there's the inner voice of your conscience. When you're engaged in your activities in life, that inner voice is dialoguing with you. So, for example, you're on a bit of a cake binge and you keep having another piece of cake, and the little voice of your conscience is really saying to you, you know, Kia, you really ought to let the cake thing go. It was nice. Let's let it go. It's not working for you. But I keep doing it anyway. What tapas is inviting us to is to engage the resistance. Okay, so I'm resisting listening to that voice of my conscience. Okay, let's just turn and look at that resistance for a moment. And let's start to work toward dissolving it. So I like to think of tapas and engaging in this way with setting an intention for ourselves. Maybe the intention is that a certain tapas or austerity or discipline is to not speak negatively about yourself or anybody else. It's a huge one when we start to really do that. Not to finish a negative sentence about ourselves or anyone else in our head. Maybe an austerity is around food, not eating that cake, not having that double latte, frappuccino, whatever thing it may be. So bringing that into our lives. And as many of you have been saying through this course, each one of these facets of awareness that I'm sharing with you day by day, each one could be utilized for a week, for a month. And so that it really becomes second nature. We're going like flash through all of these facets. really so that I can give you a whole language of how the yogis are perceiving awareness and how to elevate it. But remember that you could be focusing on this, on any one of these for a long period of time. Where we went on to from tapas was the illusion of fear. Somebody very close to me has been experiencing a lot of fear recently, and it's interesting that just how deeply that can drive you into insanity, really. When we are acting from a place of fear, we lose perception of reality. Now we're in an imaginary world that's based on however many conjectures we have about the situation that are being informed by something that's happened in the past. And so when we're experiencing fear, the invitation is to really look at it, because for most of us in our lives, the fears are actually imaginary fears. And when we can really look at it, we can start to see what's driving us at a deeper level. So that's a good practice to be in our lives. For me, fears come into my life a lot when I'm being asked to step into bigger shoes. And there's a fear, and those kinds of fears I like to really fully engage with and just take the big step in those bigger shoes and face the fear and do it anyway, as they say. So looking at where a fear is inviting you to take the plunge into something deeper, or where the fear is revealing to you that there's some subconscious belief that may be hindering your progress in that moment. The last one we came to, which was today, so for this last 7 facets of awareness we've been working on, is the 2 caretakers, the inhale and the exhale. There's many different references through this 40-day course to the breath, because it's the most powerful agent of change. As the breath, so the mind. So as we're looking to refine our relationship to our mind, it's a lot easier when we can start to shift the frequency of the mind through the breath. And the breath will reveal to us when we are out of alignment mentally. And so as we shift and move the patterns of the breath, we start to move the frequency of the mind, and we can go from a non-coherent state to a coherent state pretty quickly through the breath. And then you can start to make those subtle shifts. So for example, you're caught in not useful thinking, but you're not able to kind of change it right off the bat. If you go and you do a breath practice for a while, it starts to allow you a little bit of space. It literally changes the frequency of the brain, and now you have the capacity to actually choose useful versus not useful. Trying to just force the mind away without the breath can often feel like you're just at war with yourself. And as much as possible, we want to not be at war with ourselves mentally. We want to learn these yogic tools that can shift the brain frequency so that we can change it with ease. It's like just diverting the flow of the river versus, trying to swim upstream. So this is our practice here this week. I'm so glad you guys are joining. And I am loving the interaction that we're all having here, the shares, the ways that if somebody asks a question, I'm loving how many of you are showing up to answer and to offer your perspective. And that's my intention here. it's just that if I could facilitate a greater conversation between you all, and offer a place where you can share your wisdom and insights with others, then that makes me very happy that we can be here as a community sharing these tools and sharing the things that work for you as we go through this course. And knowing that as you share, it's going to resonate with somebody else. So wonderful. Thank you all for being here, for joining, for being committed to refining your relationship to your mind, to yourself, and thus with the rest of the world. Great. There's a couple here. I think I'm going to turn this way, as I was told last time. If I turn this way, maybe I can read the whole thing. No? Okay. Let's see. Heather, you're saying you feel in combat with yourself in the PMS part of the monthly cycle. Is there a breath practice that I can suggest to do at that time of the month? You're not alone. Many people experience that, and it's just like, I feel like with the amount of hormones in the body, it's there's a magnifying glass on all of the patterns of the mind in that time, and we really get an opportunity to see ourselves at another level. The practice that I recommend at that time is balancing for the glandular system. It's inhaling, your hands are on your knees, but you're doing this mudra as you sniff in, and you're mentally saying, so you're sniffing. So you're moving your thumb across your fingers with each sniff. I'm breaking my inhale into 4 parts. And I'm mentally repeating sa, ta, na, ma. And then I exhale, keeping the thumb and the first finger through the nose. And I mentally say Waheguru. So here's how the breath goes. Here's how the mantra goes at the same time. Sa, ta, na, ma, Waheguru. Sa, ta, na, ma, Waheguru. Yes, Rayada, this is a form of Kirtan Kriya, but it's different. We're using the mantra Waheguru as well, and we're adding the sniffs of the breath. So it's 4 parts in. 1 long, 1 out. As we sniff in, we're saying sa, ta, na, ma. As we exhale, we're mentally saying Waheguru. Satanama, infinity, life, death, rebirth. It's just affirming that cycle of life. And Waheguru is the wow, the ecstasy of me coming into right relationship with me. Waheguru, Waheguru. Me coming into relationship with the infinite, with the universe, with the truth, the totality of all that is. So do that for 11 minutes. It's a really superb glandular balance, and the sniffing, that breathing in strokes, will really help to clear the craziness of the mind and just offer you a different perspective. It's one of my all-time favorites. So that's what I would suggest. Let's see what else have we got going on here. Terry, you said you're giving me so much to use as teaching tools with my classes. Thank you. I'm so glad. Yay. Let's keep spreading the teachings, spreading the light, sharing tools as much as we can, because boy, do we need them as a greater collective. But every single person that you empower with these tools to change their consciousness is another person who's going to be making decisions that are in alignment with compassion, with kindness, with love, with the ability to see things from other people's perspectives, etc. So I think the more we can share these tools, the better. Alan, you're saying this has been a wonderful experience for you. You've been sharing and hearing positive feedback. I'm so glad. Yay. Great. Wonderful, you guys. T, nice to see you here. And then why 11 minutes, Asia? It's Yogi Bhajan, the teachings of Kundalini as taught by Yogi Bhajan. He said it takes about 11 minutes of a technique done with focus. It takes about that period of time for the small self to start to come and dissolve into alignment with the universal self. It's about that time to start to lessen our attachments to our perceived identities and to start to relax into the infinite identity, the bigger identity, that sense of vastness, of connectedness. So it takes about that time. So that's why 11 minutes. If we really want to give ourselves that opportunity to access that place, and then we can sustain it for longer. So that's why 11 minutes. If you guys have any more questions, please pop them in there. Again, really enjoying this interaction with you all, this opportunity to share and grow and connect. And if you have any more that you don't think of right now, you can always pop them in here, and I'll get them to them at a later time. If you're watching this past the live recording, just pop questions in and I'm happy to answer them. So sending you guys so much love and light, and we'll be staying connected. Sat Nam.